那今天的座谈会呢，我们会为大家详细解答当季申请的这个学生和家长可能遇到的问题啊，包括比如说今年的这个申请和录取的趋势啊，那早申请的大学该如何选择，还包括这个什么主文书啊、辅文书各自都有哪些侧重点，以及标化成绩和其他辅助材料该如何选择性提交。我相信这些都是我们当季申请的学生啊，甚至可能如果有这个今年是 junior 或者是 sophomore year 的这个朋友哈，可能也会再去想知道这些东西该怎么去抉择。那今天我们就邀请这几位重量级的嘉宾跟大家分享一下这些想法，希望可以帮助到你们。好，那我们先介绍一下这个本场的嘉宾哈。Let's know our guest for tonight. 首先呢，是我们来自普林斯顿大学的前招生官 Makina。Hi, Makina. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. 好，然后呢，第二位是我们的来自康奈尔大学的前招生官 Monica。Hi, Monica. Welcome again.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see everyone here.
Yeah, of course. We're so happy to have you. And then 是我们这个 In America 本科的高级顾问老师 Joshua，他同时也是我的校友，都是毕业于宾夕法尼亚大学的。Hi, Joshua.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be here.
Nice. 好，那我今天呢也是作为这个本科的高级顾问哈，也会跟三位嘉宾老师会一起去探讨这几个问题。好，那我这边呢，就是也是收集了一些我们当季学生和家长常去问到的几个问题，我相信这也是咱们今天的观众朋友们就是也会很关心的哈。那么我们可以一起来听听看招生官们，包括顾问老师怎么看待的。鉴于时间的关系呢，我可能没有办法为大家逐字逐句的进行翻译，请大家理解一下哈。但是我会尽量用中文来总结一下重点的内容。All right, let's look at our first question. So I'm preparing like several questions that are commonly asked from our, not our, like from all the applicants for this year, and then let's just discuss together. So first question， 好，我们看第一个问题哈，是关于这个当季申请的一个形式的解读，这可能是大家就比较关心的一个宏观的一个层面上。So what do you think of the current application trend? Anything worth noting or sharing? Maybe Monica, you can start.
Sure, of course. I think we kind of briefly alluded to it before, but one thing that definitely will be continuing is since the standardized tests are optional, this kind of creates more of a focus on reviewing the transcript and courses and caliber of courses for the academic year. So we want to make sure that we're seeing students taking challenging courses and that they're doing well in those courses. So anything that's advanced level, higher level, not really so beginner level, if offered at their school, is really important for us to kind of determine what their academic success would look like at the institution that they're applying for. So that's something definitely to be mindful of. If you have an opportunity to take a class that's a little bit more challenging, advanced level placement like that would be the way to go if you feel confident that you can definitely succeed in that course. And I think, again, there was definitely an increase in early admissions applications as well that I've noticed from my perspective. And I would assume that is likely, again, the case for this upcoming academic year, just because students are definitely more focused with standardized tests being optional. They might want to just secure their spot in early decision, early action. So that's something to consider as well if you're really geared on applying for an institution and it's your top choice, that would be the way to go, I would suggest.
Yeah, thank you. I think last year was kind of a good example because last year was like the first year for all the new changes, but this year is kind of, I think, slightly easier for this year's applicants because they have something to refer to. Yeah, and Joshua, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, just to reiterate some of the points we were making earlier, it's important as you're seeing class acceptance rates drop, it's important to also look at the school's class profile and use that partially to gauge your candidacy along with other factors like your high school's historical relationships, so their past acceptances. And the reason why I say that's important is because you saw a lot of schools become much more selective in this last cycle because of that increased application volume. But when you look at their class profile, you don't see a equally dramatic spike in the averages, so their GPAs, their standardized test scores. And so it's important to remember that a higher volume of applicants doesn't necessarily equal out to a higher number of qualified applicants. And the other piece that I would say should be remembered is because of the pandemic, a lot of activities were halted. And so something that's important that I've been seeing is the activities list is actually coming under a little bit more scrutiny. And that's because a lot of students have found very creative ways to use their time. And so I imagine that similarly this year, the activities list will really be heavily utilized to figure out who that student is and what's most important to them.
Yeah, exactly. I really like your idea, Joshua, about like students should not be just freaked out by just the volume of the applications, but that also they need to refer to like the admitted students, the class profile to really see where they're at in this application pool. Yeah, so I'm going to do a short translation. 好，那我来稍微总结一下刚刚这个Monica 和 Joshua 来跟大家分享的哈。首先呢，就是今年我觉得呢，确实是一个还比较不错的啊，因为去年是就新的调整嘛，那今年其实很多调整都跟去年是保持一致的，所以我们可以以去年作为一个样本来去参考一下。所以今年申请的孩子来说，相对来讲没有去年那么多的那种惊喜或惊吓那么刚刚老师们其实提到了几个点哈，首先就是说对于这个标化考试大部分学校我们一会儿可以看几组数据哈，就是大部分学校呢还是采取这个选择性提交的这种政策，所以呢那大学招生官就会更加看重你在高中上的这些课程，对吧？就是既然你不提交标化成绩了，那你总得展现出来你的这个学习成绩多么的优秀，对吧？你是如何愿意挑战自己，所以如果你在高中里面能够上一些比较有挑战性的课程，无论它是 AP 呀，或者是 IB， 或者是你们学校就是这种高阶的课程都可以，那来证明自己，就是说我是愿意去在学术上面去接受挑战的。那么这样的情况下，如果你选择不提交标化这个成绩的话，也可以至少有一方面可以证明你的这个能力和你的热情。好，第二点就是说呢，我们去年因为很多学生都跟我们聊哈，就是哎呀，这很多学校都收到特别多的这个申请人，哪怕是在这个早批申请，对吧？我们都以为啊，就或者是往年的这种经验来看，早批申请呢，应该是申请人数没有那么多，但是去年的话，就是这个增长真的是还蛮吓人的。大部分前30的学校都会大概有20%左右这么一个申请人数的增长。但是呢，我们也不要盲目的被这个数量所吓到哈，我们还是要看录取的学生的这个 profile， 就是他们的这个平均分啊，然后这个标化成绩是什么样子呀，以及什么各个地区啊，或者是男女比等等，就是要看这个录取学生的这些数据来去客观的分析说，那你这个现在的这个情况对这个大学而言，你是在这个申请人当中是一个什么样的一个位置，你是什么样的一个情况，有多具竞争力，不要光被这个申请数量所被吓到。然后呢，再一个第三点就是说，因为就是疫情嘛，就是特别是在这个美国的这个学生哈，这个国内相信我应该差不多类似的这个情况，就是课外的一些活动，特别是说如果在社会上一些实践什么的，可能都有一些限制，学校里面有些活动也会选择性去关闭。那么这种时候呢，我们学生就会多一些时间，对吧？那么你怎么去用比较创造性的去发挥你的主观能动性来去利用好你的这些课余的时间，这个是大学招生官非常看重的。不等于说，哎，学校这边不开这活动了，我就什么都不干了，对吧？那你这样，那怎么能够体现你是一个是吧好学的，然后有竞争力的、奋发向上的一个这个有潜力的学生呢，对吧？所以这个时候，我们就是更要就是面对挑战之后，我们更要去发挥出来我们的这个创造能力，对吧？但如何去在条件限制的情况下，还能够把这个时间利用好？好，那么我们再看这个几组数据哈，这个我估计可能也是几个学生这个家长关心的。首先呢，就是这个综合排名 综合排名这边呢，就是有几个主要的变动，给大家总结一下啊。哥伦比亚大学今年是上升了1位，它与哈佛跟麻省理工并列第2位。然后杜克大学呢是重回了全美的前10名，目前排名第9。然后纽约大学 Tufts 大学就是在这个波士顿附近的，还有佛罗里达大学，他们这个都进步了2名，现在是并列第28位。然后呢，这个 UC，我们又有一所这个校区是 Santa Barbara， 它升至全美的第28位，也就是说，目前来看有3个 UC 系的大学稳居前30，包括UCLA、UC Berkeley 以及之前的这个 UC Santa Barbara 又升了一点，然后还有一个学校呢，是属于从后面靠后一点的这个位置哈。然后今年提到了第38位，就是这个Texas 大学奥斯汀分校。那么如果有喜欢理工科的学生，这个学校也是比较出名的话，可以再关注一下这个学校。好，然后呢，录取率刚刚其实几位招生官那个已经就提到了哈，就录取率呢确实是降低，因为确实这个申请的数量增多，那他录取的这些人数这个没有就是相对来说增长，那所以它这个录取率就会降低一些，包括康奈尔大学啊、纽约大学，然后以及波士顿大学这几个都是很明显的这个例子哈，都是从往年的10%降到8%，或者是往年可能纽约大学之前它是30%多，甚至那去年又降到12.8%，是属于历史最低，然后标化政策呢，这个相信今年申请的学生应该已经都就是去看了哈。那么如果没有关注的话，你要再核实一下。大部分学校呢还是去延续的这个 test optional policy， 就是选择性提交标化成绩。UCC 大学呢也是就是不考虑标化成绩啊，跟去年是一样的。佛罗里达大学它是 required， 它是要求标化成绩，这也是少数几个在前30里面就是明确要求标化成绩的大学。还有一些其他提醒，就是尤其是关于这个截止时间的哈，我觉得大家呢真的要去学校的这个官网上再去核实一下。比如说 UIOC 它这个今年是用这个 Common Application 哈，就是我们这个美国这边通用的一个大学的申请系统，但是它这上面没有显示说你可以有 Early Action， 但是其实呢，大学这边官网是说，如果是你能够在这个 Early Action 这个 deadline 之前提交的话，那么它就默认你是 Early Action 这个项目。所以具体这个学校是怎么说的，一定要以官方的这个说法为准。那第二点就是有很多学生会关注这个南加州大学哈，那么这个大学是没有 ED 和 EA 的，它只有常规录取。然后第3点就是说，有关这个 restricted early action， 那这个政策呢，它是每个学校都不太一样。然后这个很多这个前20的这个藤校啊，我相信有升藤校的学生对于这个 REA 这个项目应该不陌生。就这个具体它是怎么说的，怎么去限制你升其他的学校，这个一定要是以这个大学的说法为准。比如说我举2个例子，一个是哈佛，哈佛呢这个首先它不是 binding， 就是如果你通过 REA 这个项目升上的话，你不是一定要去同时呢，你申这个哈佛的 REA， 你是可以申请其他美国公立大学的 EA 但是不能申 ED， 也不能申其他私立大学的 EA。那前20里呢，其实除了 UCLA 都是私立的，那基本上就是前20它都不能申请 AEA 这个意思。然后呢，但是圣母大学就不是，圣母大学呢，就是它是说也同样也不是 binding， 就是你升上了不一定要去，但是你可以同时申请其他美国公立或私立的 EA， 只是不能申请 ED。所以这是关于政策方面的这个，包括截止时间，一定要以每一个学校的这个官方的说法为准。Sorry guys, I shared like a lot of studies just to provide enough background information. All right, so let's move on to the second question. So I think at this moment, everybody's considering like early action, early decision, and then how to choose them, how to apply them. Then what are your suggestions on the school selection and the application for, the early round? Let's say maybe McKenna, you can start on this one.
Sure, yes, thank you. And I think one of the points that I wanted to make, I think you may have touched on a little bit just from recognizing a little bit of English in your slides.
Yeah.
But for early decision and early action, you want to definitely make sure you know what you're agreeing to when you're applying to a school that has an early policy. And by that, I mean, sometimes the decision is binding, meaning that if you get in early, you must withdraw all other applications from other places you applied, and you must, if you're going to attend college, it has to be that one. And it's typically very, very difficult to get out of that for whatever reason. It typically has to come down to like a financial reason that you're not going to attend any school. So that is very important to keep in mind, and to feel certain that if you are applying to a school that is binding, that is where somewhere that you would be happier, would find a good home for yourself for the next couple of years. Sometimes for early action, you do not have to attend the school if you get in, but sometimes there are restrictions on the other institutions you can apply to early. So a lot of times, and this is what the Ivy Leagues do, is they say, you can apply to us early, we will not force you to attend, but you have to apply everywhere else regular. So just the first step is to make sure that you understand the school's guidelines, and it's always a good idea to double check with someone. So whether it's one of us or another counselor figure that you have, just to make sure that you're understanding correctly and to be able to bounce that decision off of someone. And the other point that I really want to emphasize at this point when people are choosing which schools to apply to early, if any, is that an early application can show strong interest to a school, but it won't be enough if you're not academically qualified in the first place. So make sure to choose your early application in a thoughtful way, that you're not throwing away, so to speak, an opportunity if you really are not in their like matching what their class profile is showing. And so again, we are here to talk through options, and it's a good idea to really set some time aside to think about what your dream places are and what's realistic, and come together. Sometimes it has to be a little bit of a compromise, but to choose your best shot for an early application.
Yeah. I think definitely agree with you. When I, do the consulting with my students, definitely they struggle a lot about like which one to choose. But there are a lot of the good ones, and then the kind of like their dream school. But like whether they're strong enough to get in, or it's kind of tricky question always. Yeah, Joshua, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, so I agree with everything that was just said. So seconded. One thing that I would also say is, a lot of schools misrepresent some of their early acceptance rates. So frequently I'll have families ask me about the impact an early decision application will make on their candidacy, because they'll see that a school might normally have a 5% acceptance rate, but through early decision, it might be much larger. But I would say don't be fooled by those statistics, just because in admissions, you typically see stronger students at the beginning of your cycle. And so without applicant information, without knowing those profiles of students, you're not able to actually say whether or not them applying early was a determining factor in their candidacy. So really what's important to remember is that applying early doesn't make it so the applicant, so the student, it doesn't make it so that they face less competition or lower admission standards. It's really just a way to show a school that you're very serious about attending their institution.
Got it. That's definitely a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, and a really good point too, to make sure that everyone's understanding.
Yes, definitely. Monica, do you have anything to add on?
I think McKenna and Joshua really kind of hit the nail on the head. What I would, but I guess on the flip side, with all of these factors in mind, it's really crucial that you're knowingly going into either early decision or early action, knowing just the strings that are attached to them per school, because they all have different, requirements and restrictions in that sense. But that even puts a little bit of more, pressure on you to figure out exactly, is this the right school? Is this the right fit? Because you don't want to end up just applying to a school just for the sake of it, just because it's a high caliber school or an Ivy League school. Like, you need to make sure that you're choosing the school that best matches your interests, so that if in case you apply to a school, they have the major that you want, or the backup major as well, just in case you end up swapping majors eventually. Some students, that does happen. So just make sure that you do the research, you find the right fit for you, the right community for you at the institution. And when you're doing early decision and early action, that it follows suit with that mindset in mind.
Okay, let's just say if a student is not, like, maybe students is not feeling comfortable or confident enough to apply in this early round, but maybe it's like early action, like, or early decision usually have a higher admission rate. So should the students just go for, you know, a random school just for the early round, or should he maybe not just wait until maybe the early decision 2 round, or even the regular decision round, when, you know, he is more comfortable and well prepared?
I would probably advise the latter.
Yeah.
Just to apply when they're ready and they're more clear on what their goals are and is strongest. You don't want to submit something that is at a halfway point that is the best, I guess, description or representation of the student.
Yeah.
I would also add that I think, you know, it sounds kind of like a simple answer to wait until your application is at its strongest, or as strong as it can be. That being said, I really just want to validate that it's really hard when your peers in school are applying places early and you're trying to decide if you should wait. And
everyone's
that, I mean,
discussing
that's
together. It's peer pressure.
Yeah, so it's definitely hard. I mean, it's hard in life not to compare to other people, but particularly I think this is a year that's very hard. So I would say to have confidence in what your route is, and to kind of stay in your own lane, meaning try not to get caught up in what other people are doing. Try to stay focused on your goals in the year and moving forward. And try not to like beat yourself up if you're not ready to apply somewhere early, because in the end, you're going to go to school, you're going to get into a good school, and whether you applied early or regular, the only difference is if you found out if you got in January or like 3 months later, and it's really not that much of a difference.
Yeah, definitely. I think students definitely need to keep, I guess, calm and then really not think too much about what, or just assume what like everyone else is doing. Yeah, I do have another question. I have like seen some students who are in a really large class that like they're discussing a lot about, oh, which school you're applying for ED. Maybe this, like, after some round of discussion, they realize that, oh my God, there are like probably 30 students applying for the same college as ED. So should students still apply, or should he just, you know, like select something else? You know, it's kind of tricky.
I would say that they absolutely should still apply. Just to echo the earlier comment, you don't want to gauge your admissibility and your applications off of other people. And it's really important to remember that most of the time when students are comparing themselves to their peers and they're saying, you know, oh, I know these 5 people are applying, they're better than me, so I shouldn't apply. Frequently, what they're exclusively thinking about is their numbers, so their GPA and their test scores. And it's really important for students to know that they're so much more than that. So when we evaluate applications, we're looking at everything. So your recommendations really matter, your activities matter, and so does your writing, how you speak about yourself, how you advocate for yourself. So it's not a good idea just to push yourself out of you know, contending for a spot at a school just because you think your peers are more advanced than you. You know, let us in admissions make that decision for you. We definitely don't want you to count yourself out before you've even really given yourself a shot.
Yes, I would also add to that admission officers are very aware of the schools that they are reading applications from. And so a lot of schools that I would read for Princeton in New York City is with, the population of some of these schools, we were like, it wasn't in terms of like thinking about like the top 10 students, it was thinking about like the top 200, because some of these were huge schools where students are testing to get into them. And so it was, so it's not, I feel like there's this idea of like valedictorian or like top 10, but admission officers they know their schools very well, the ones that they're reading for. And so, yeah, again, like you don't know the other people who are applying, but even if everyone else is applying, you have a unique application that you're submitting. In admission officers, they're not, I mean, they're reading everyone's application, not just the top few. So know that they are getting a thorough review.
So I guess it's still like more of like analyzing their own uniqueness and tendencies, not really just comparing with everyone else or assume that, oh, the other one has a higher GPA, then maybe definitely he will get in, I will not. It's not like really rough, I guess. Yeah, that makes sense, definitely. So let me translate for our audience. 刚才呢，我们就是跟3位老师哈进行了一波这个讨论，我觉得还蛮值得跟大家分享的。就是关于早批申请呢，其实我这边在辅导学生的时候也会经常就是看到大家很焦虑嘛。首先就是说，哎呀，这个早批申请，是不是就是意味着录取率我的机会更高呀？那录取率呢是相对来说，相对于这个常规申请会高一些，但是这不是说你就随便谁都能申，对吧？那也同时意味着，就这些能够早批申请的人，他都是准备的很充足，是吧？能力或者说我们就是能够就是怎么讲？机会比较大的这些人吧，是准备的很充足，然后各方面都很优秀，所以其实你不能说啊，因为录取率高，所以我就可以随便申，我就可以觉得说啊，早申我就肯定能进，这不是这个意思。但是另外一个方面，也不是说我这边有些学生他可能在学校里面听到，比如说啊，我们年级已经有10个人要申请，比如说哥大了啊，或者是有20个人要申请康奈尔了，那我还要不要申？那他们可能了解的情况是发现有几个人成绩比自己强，那是不是我就不要申请了？那这个时候呢，其实我们真的是要保持好自己的心态，你还是要看到你自己的这个申请材料是什么样的一个情况，不是说盲目的跟别人比较那某一个方面。大学招生官看学生的这个 profile， 包括你的这个材料的时候哈，它是一个综合的评估，不只是你的成绩，对吧？还有包括你选课难度啊，包括你推荐信是吧？这个内容如何？包括你的这个活动情况，还有你的文书，对吧？这一系列东西是一个 whole package， 是一个整体，他会去看的。所以不要光听别人说了某一个点，可能跟你稍微就是比你稍微强一点点，你就打退堂鼓，就说我肯定不能申，也不是这么的去武断的去思考方式，还是要回到你自身的这个材料准备和背景情况，做一个比较客观的去分析。然后呢，再有就是这个政策问题哈，确实要提醒大家，我们一定要熟悉好，就是哪些这个 program 是不管它是 ED、EA 还是 REA， 哪些是 binding 的，就是你录了必须要去，哪些是不是 binding， 对吧？那不是 binding 的，我们可能余地会稍微就是灵活一点。那像这种录取的就一定要去的话，你肯定是要选择自己非常喜欢的，但 within 在自己喜欢的这些学校里面，还要客观的分析说哪一所是真的是比较适合你。这个我们刚刚老师在说 the right fit， 对吧？就是哪个是更加适合你，你也适合他们，这样子是要做一个非常理性的一个评估。那其实，在我们项目里面，我们作为导师，在这个早批学校这个选择的时候，其实是会有很多轮的这种讨论和包括我们跟学生讨论啊，我们组内讨论，还有跟招生官老师一起这样子，会做过很多这种评估，会去给出比较专业的建议。所以学生你们自己的话，也是要做这个工作，一定要去理性的、客观的看待你们自己。All right, let's move on to the third question, which is about the materials. I know like a lot of students are struggling with their essay writing. I think right now it's kind of the time for them to kind of finalize their content, or maybe for them to start the supplemental content. So I want to make sure they understand like the importance of each, and then we'll just focus for that. So what do you think of the most important thing in the common application essay or the main essay? And then how should the supplemental essays interact or complement the main essay? So maybe this one, Joshua, you can start.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I find a lot of students forget is their audience. So who specifically they're writing for. Now, it's important to remember you're writing for a college administrator. And the reason why I bring this up is I've seen a lot of students who will use field-specific or overly technical language in their essays. And something that's important to remember is that isn't highlighting the need to know information for your audience. So for me, I'm not concerned with maybe the specifics of your research, the technical aspects of it. I want to know what benefit it gave you, how you plan to utilize those skills, different things like that. So I would just caution students against using, very specific, highly specialized language. Remember that you're writing for the common man. So be direct, be very concise with your writing, but most of all, be clear. And something also just to consider as you think about how these different writing components, so your different essays play off of one of another, it's fine if some of it is overlap. So it's fine to hit on some of the...
现在这个是 onsite 的。
I think.
So I was just gonna say it's okay.
你再等等，要不然如果我可以让他给你盯着点。
Let me see.
或者她老公也是做 NOS 的，也是做那个做这个 enterprise。
Let me see.
行，就是这个东西，你知道那个 team 跟 team 他们不一样。
Okay, I think you're good. Yeah, Joshua, sorry about that.
No, you're totally...
Audience, I just forgot to turn off their mic. We're just getting excited.
So I was just going to say, it's fine if your writing components play off of one another, but they should show different perspectives. So for example, I have a student who's writing their essay about an injury that they've encountered and how that actually ended up leading them to an interest in research. But their main essay is about the injury and their recovery. Their supplements, however, focus on the specifics of their research and the skills that they've acquired and how they plan to use them in the future. And so even though both components, both essays will hit upon research, it's showing them in a different light. So it's showing a different perspective. So generally you want to try and get different content out, unique experiences in all of your writing, but it's okay if you see a little bit of an overlap. And that can also be used to create a cohesive narrative around your application. So that can be used to pull together some aspects.
Yeah, definitely. I think you definitely have a great point about like the difference or the like how much overlap it could be, but still you wanna like you wanna keep it consistent but also different so that like the admission officer can know more about you. Yeah, and then Monica.
Sure. Yeah, I think some of the challenges that I've seen reading multiple essays is they certainly do overlap a lot for some students where it's almost a repeated copy. Just maybe some things are changed a little bit here and there, but yeah, that's definitely a good point just to be mindful of making sure that it complements your overall application and it's unique in its own special ways. So that's a great example. Just more of a general overview, like a theme would be, when we're reading these essays, for me, I've been doing them for several years. Like I primarily look for curiosity about the world, what your specific are, causes that you support, anything that really tells us who you are as a person, because we might read that through your activities, your grades might be good, but your essay is your time to shine, to like kind of advocate for yourself and tell us like why you would be a good asset for the institution. It's really important just to make sure that you convey your message as clear as possible while answering the essay prompt. Please answer the prompt. That's probably also a very important thing to note because you want to make sure it's very well written. Take the time to write the essay out and knowing that you did answer the question while also conveying these important goals that you need to show us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll just let Makina share before I translate.
Sure. I think these are great points. I just had, I think, two more kind of perspectives to share. So one thing that I was an admission officer at Princeton for several years, and this is true for a lot of top 100 schools, a lot of schools in the United States, that it's not just where students are being on campus during the day, going to a couple class buildings, and then leaving. A lot of our schools are a college campus in a community. And so when admission officers are reading your application, we can see through your transcript in your grades that you're a strong student. And so we kind of have that piece of the puzzle. But we're also looking at your overall application. And this is where the essay and letters of recommendation really come in, as we think there are many more students academically qualified than we can admit. And so which students do we really want to have on our campus? Like, who would be a good roommate? Who would be a good study buddy? Who would be a good, potentially in the future, like residential advisor for other new students? So I think it's important to think, in your application, you're not only trying to show that you're academically strong, and there are many ways we can gauge that and see that. But I think the essay and the letters of recommendation can really speak to your character. And so that's something to keep in mind. And yes, again, I just wanted to, a point that I wanted to bring in was definitely trying to use the essays to share new information as much as you can, and maybe even more specifically, if there is going to be overlap, maybe just like a sentence. If one of your essays is mostly about, to use Joshua's example, like an injury, then maybe in that additional essay, just something like a nod towards, like, in addition to the injury that I sustained, these other factors like are compelling you to that area of study. So yeah, again, not to repeat. And then this is, some people laugh at hearing this, but it would happen that we would get essays that would say, like, and this is why, like, Yale is my #1 school, and we were at Princeton. And so do want to double check that you're submitting the materials you're intending to submit to the right school, because that doesn't reflect well upon you. We know that there'll be some overlap of information, but you do want to address the school that you're applying to.
Exactly. Sometimes like these, like I guess like some like really easy mistakes, like we will think like nobody would do that, but actually a lot of people still did. So that's a great reminder. Yeah, actually, when I did my consulting with my students, they one of the major questions they would normally ask at the beginning of the brainstorming for the main essay is that, I just want to just show how great I am in academics. I want to just list all the awesome things I did in school. But I'm like, I have to keep telling them this is really not like where you want to just show or list all the things you did. We have like your activity list, you have a resume and a supplemental essay to highlight that part, but it's really a place to show, or maybe the only place to show who you are, like, or maybe just share why you're doing this, or what kind of like things you gain from the experiences, and then what kind of life you want to have like based on this backgrounds. I think it's really good that like all of you have mentioned that it's not just sharing the significant things you did, but more of like showing who you are, the uniqueness about you. Yeah, I think this is great. Okay, let me translate for our audience. 那刚才呢，我们的这个3位导师哈，其实都说了这个差不多的这个意思，但有一些补充，我这里跟大家就是总结一下。首先呢，就是我们要很清楚的这个主文书哈，就是我们说这个 Common App 里边 Personal Statement 这篇文书，它的这个观众是招生官。招生官呢，可能不具备你这个领域里面的专业知识，而且你的这个主文书也不需要写的特别的这个专业化。有些学生就是，哎呀，我要彰显我在这个领域里面是多么的厉害，我学到了多少知识，把自己学的经济学或者是金融学或者是工程学这些专业词汇我罗列一大堆。那这个呢，就是 it's okay，就是可以这样放，但是重点不在这里，重点是想说，我们想看到的是你通过这个经历，你学到了什么，你有什么感受，你是什么样的一个人，你做了什么，你是有什么样的一些特质，是招生官可能会觉得说，很看重。比如说刚才我们老师有提到说，比如说你是想展现你的好奇心，你想展现你的探索的能力，你想展现你对某一个学科有非常非常浓厚的兴趣等等，那这些是招生官更加看重的啊，不是说就你这地方并不是展现你的这个专业知识的这个地方。然后那么就是说到辅文书哈，那有些辅文书它的这个问题确实是问的比较细，而且辅文书确实会是有这个可能这个知识稍微多一点这个老师来去看待哈，所以这里边比如说有些主文就问你啊，那你为什么选择这个专业呀？或者你为什么选择这个方向啊？你将来以后你的这个人生目标是什么呀？那这种东西的话，你就可以写更多的，比如说你在这方面的做的科研经历啊，或者是写做的活动啊，也可以放一些这种比如所谓的这个 tag term 进去啊什么的，来去说明就是你做的这些事情是如何的。那么如何判断你的主文书跟辅文书这个内容是完全一样，还是说完全不一样？这个地方呢，是你可以有一些连接啊，比如说你的这个主文书显得是你很好奇，对吧？你就是从小就是对事物都很好奇，然后都喜欢去探索。那你的辅文书可能写的是你探索的这个结果，比如说你是做了很多科研项目，或者参加了很多夏校，或者是跟学生沟通讨论等等。那这个其实这个特质是有联系的，但是这个信息这个故事不是重复的，那这样其实就是一个蛮好的一个这种组合。有些学生呢，他可能写的这个 overlap 就是这个重复性太多，就他可能主文书写的就是我怎么样做的一个科研，然后呢，这个辅文书写的又是这个科研本身，那这就不是一个新的信息，相当于是你浪费了一个机会来去展现更多的你是什么，对吧？那其实这个招生官来说，他就觉得这不是一个很积极的一种感受吧，他不会觉得说哦，你是想要强调，而是觉得你可能没有什么新的这种有价值的信息给到他们。然后再一个就是说，这个其实每年都会有学生会有一些就是这种小的问题哈，比如说在辅文书里面可能有一些问题是很多大学都问到了，比如说你的这个社区服务啊，或者是说你为什么选择这个专业啊，然后学生可能会用同一篇文书来去申请这些大学，这个是 OK 的，但是你一定要检查里面提到大学的这个词儿和提到大学这些人啊，这些是一定要是就是不一样的。你比如说你写的是你自身的这个经历，这是 OK， 你可以用同样的东西 recycle 一下。但是如果写到这个大学本身，你一定要是根据这个大学来去进行 tailor 的，要是定制的这种。我们刚刚老师说，有的人他是这个普林斯顿大学招生官是吧？就有人交上来说啊 ，this is why， 这就是为什么我喜欢耶鲁大学。那你这样就是招生官知道说。你确实是，可能是用过之前的这个故事，他也不是很介意，对吧？但是你不能让他看到，就是我就为什么是耶鲁大学，这就是一个就是非常不好的，也是个很小的一个这个错误吧，就会让人觉得你也太不小心了。OK， 好，那我们这是关于这个主辅文书的侧重点哈。我们最后还有一个问题呢，是关于这个标化和补充材料的。Okay, so this is our last question. It's about like how students should decide whether they submit their test scores or not, or what about some other supplemental materials like portfolio or some additional recommendation letters, or I don't know, like something like that. So maybe Monica, you can start on this.
Sure. I would say there's a lot of factors to consider exactly why you should submit test scores. So some of them would be what classes you have taken. And I mentioned this before regarding what level of challenge those courses are, if it's like a beginner level or intermediate, advanced level, like math, etc. kind of course to be mindful of. Their rigorousness is important because, for example, let's say if you're applying for a statistics program and you do have plenty of math courses that are advanced level and you did perform well in those courses with strong grades, then not necessarily you would need to submit a grade because you've already exemplified your ability to handle those kind of courses. On the flip side, let's say if you have like maybe a couple hit or miss grades that are maybe less consistent than what you normally would like, it would be a good idea in that situation to actually take or submit test scores to show your current aptitude, because maybe those courses are taken like a few years ago and you didn't do so well because you're just starting to adapt or any other reasons. But now you have a handle on things and you're showing growth and improvement. So to further supplement your application, it would be a good idea to submit that test score to show your stronger math skills currently. So that's something that I'm always looking for. So when I'm reviewing an application with test scores, I'm first looking at the transcript to see the progression of grades. If the student has increasingly improved from year to year, if there are more scattered grades, that's some cause for concern. And that would be the test score to kind of help us figure out like where your aptitude would be in that subject, whether it's for writing, it's for mathematics or any other topic.
Yeah, thank you. I think due to the time limit, I'm gonna just ask everyone to share. So Makina, do you want to add something more?
Sure, yes, and I can get wordy, so I'll keep it quick. If something is optional, I always advise to, if your performance is mediocre and it's optional, you do not want to reveal a weakness. So if it's not required and you just did okay, we don't need to submit that. You want to show your excellence in your application. And to touch quickly on the art supplements, that is one in particular. Something that I think a lot of people don't know is that kind of the flip of what Joshua was saying with the essay is that those are going to be read by admission officers who might not have specialized knowledge in like chemical engineering. Art supplements like music, creative writing, any of these are not evaluated by admission officers. They go to faculty members in that school where that is their specialty.
Oh yeah.
So just because you're, in your family, you're the best piano player, you would want to put together an art supplement with a piano specialist who will tell you if you are at, the level where a university professor would want to review your work. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that distinction makes sense for everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So one more question. So what if like students is not applying for a piano or music major, but he still want to use this, I guess, the piano video clip as a supplemental material? Would that still be reviewed seriously by an like expert in that field in college?
So I guess is the question like whether or not you should submit that? No, you want to submit things that are strong and that will make you stand out in the best way. So whether that's standardized test scores or an optional art supplement, unless they're going to, pinpoint you at the top of, of the submissions that for these optional ones, you'll want to keep that for yourself.
Okay, got it. Thanks. And Monica? Oh, sorry, and Joshua, I'm sorry. God, sorry, I
was just gonna say, what about me? So I think that those were great points, McKenna. I definitely agree with you. Those can be much more specialized because if you're, let's say, an art student applying to an arts degree or even a computer science student, there's a lot of different aspects of a portfolio that can show your deep understanding of the field that you'd like to join. So that can definitely be more specific. For supplemental materials, I would say it's very important to recognize the distinction between additional materials you can submit through the Common App and additional materials that you're sending outside of that.
Yeah.
And the reason why I highlight that is because a portfolio, an additional information section, or even an additional letter of recommendation can definitely help strengthen a student's application. But something to remember is generally a lighter application is a good application. And it's just for a couple reasons. And again, none of this is to say that there aren't a lot of great reasons that you would submit additional materials. But things just to keep in mind is if I give you a 5-page application, I don't want 30 pages back. And I've definitely received 30 plus pages of supplemental materials. Another piece that I would say is the Common App works with colleges to create their application and to evaluate it. And when they're setting up the application, they're purposefully limiting you. So they want to know what's most important. They don't want to know everything there is about you. And so just recognize that the application is set up in a way, it's very specific in terms of what they're looking to gather from you. So sometimes additional materials actually goes against really the purpose of the structure of some of their sections. And then the last thing that I would also encourage students to recognize is that most students will get in without a lot of additional pieces. And so I just encourage you to think about whether or not it's necessary. And if you aren't trying to plead your case fruitlessly. So, you know, you want to focus on fit. If you think you need all of these additional materials to make yourself qualified for a class, ask yourself if that is really the best fit, when most students won't need dozens of extra materials in order to plead their case.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. I guess everyone just saying that it's not like the number of supplemental materials you're submitting, but the quality and whether it's a good fit or is the best way to show who you are. Yeah, thank you. 好，那刚才呢，我们的这个招生官老师在去分析这个标化以及补充材料的这个时候呢，其实大家都有提到说，首先，我们是提交的材料肯定是要保证是最好的，最能够展现我们的这个特质以及强项，对吧？那如果是标化成绩，肯定是要达到一定的标准，我们才会去提交，不能说为了提交而提交。那有的时候，比如说，如果你的标化成绩没有很好，那其实提交之后也是一个劣势嘛，对吧？所以这种时候就可以选择不去提交。但是这种时候一定要再看一下学校成绩。again， 这就是我们刚刚提到说，你是否有其他的途径来去展现你的学术成绩？比如说你学校的成绩非常好，并且你上了很多很有挑战的这些课程，那么就是你会有相对来说比较高的机会，会还是被招生官喜欢，就是在你不提交标化成绩的这个情况下哈。好，那么辅助材料这块呢，就是我确实有些学生说，哎呀，老师，我这个也有天分，那个也做了一点，那个也做的还行，要不我都提交吧？我还做过饭，我还这个踢过球什么的，虽然做的都不是很好。好，那这个时候其实大学招生官他不是想看一个全部的你，对吧？他想看的是 the most important， 就是最为重要的你的这些部分是什么，最能够展现你的强项的。那么，所以你如果要决定说要提交一个辅助材料，无论是你比如说弹钢琴的一段这个伴奏，或者是一个片段，或者是说你自己剪辑的一个视频，或者是你可能做了一个什么网站等等，那一定要保证这些东西真的都是能够展现你的强项，跟你的这个整个人设是吧，是完全符合的，并且是真的做的这个质量是很到位的，你才会去提交。如果都做不到的话，那还不如不提交。对，如果提交一个就是很普通的这种东西，其实对你的这个申请没有什么帮助。All right，那我们就往下再稍微看一下哈，就是那刚刚我们其实说了很多这些我们的这个建议也好，那可能会有学生和家长会问说，哎，那我们的这个In America 是吧，可以给大家提供什么呢？那帮大家去来看一下我们的这个团队组成哈，我们这边是有30多位这个藤校前招生官，然后100多位这个学术的辅导老师，还有包括竞赛老师、高级的艺术导师、科研导师等等，我们是能覆盖所有领域的，所以是任何你想学的这些知识或者想做的科研项目，或者是说想要加强的某些学术方面的辅导，我们这边都有这个资源可以提供给你。然后再帮大家稍微再梳理一下我们这边的这个申请和辅导的这个协作的这个流程哈，看看我们这整个团队是怎么样去协作的。那首先我们作为导师呢，就是我跟 Joshua 我们这样的导师就会去跟学生主要进行非常密切的合作，要去很多轮讨论啊，制定方案啊，并且去着手这种材料的准备，还要给他定方向。那之后呢，我们这个本科组内会进行一波研讨跟分析，然后再进一步完善一下这个申请方案和文书方案。然后再之后，就像 Makina 和 Monica 这样，就是招生官团队呢，会帮我们这个所有的这些方案和这个材料进行一个整体的把关，然后提供建议，我们再及时做出一些调整。最后的一轮是由我们本科部的主管进行最终的这个审核，我们就确保说所有的材料都是最精细的、最完美的、最合格的状态来去提交展现给大学。 好，那么我们呢，这里呢就是时间的关系，好，我们这里可能就挑几个，这个 chat room 里面比较问的多的这个问题，我们来回复一下。我看看啊，I see some questions from our chat room here. I think we might be able to do 2 questions. Let's see here. Okay, so there is all right, so looks like okay, somebody asked about the essay writing. Okay, this is interesting. So 这个问题我先用中文讲一下哈，就是这个问题是问到文书写作当中，就是这个看来这个还是懂一点哈，就是 show not to tell， 就是要展现而不是去讲述，就是这个事情。那可否再详细讲解一下该怎么样去展现呢？ Okay, so this is about essay writing. I think students know about this strategy, which is really good. So they mention about the strategy called to show, not to tell. It's really important to understand that, but they don't really not sure like how to show a story. Yeah, I think that's a really good one. So maybe like anyone want to start this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in.
Yeah.
So I think what's really important to remember is that you don't want to bring anything up in your essay that is going to leave me, the admissions reader, with questions. And if you're simply stating something to me, stating a fact, it might leave me with questions. And so what I see frequently is an applicant might say they want to show through their essays that they have strong leadership potential. So let's use leadership as an example. In their essay, the student might say, I've been a leader because I've inspired collaboration and I've helped bring my team together. The thing is that that's kind of a statement leaves me with a lot of questions. I want to know how you fostered a collaborative environment. I want to know how you brought people together. And so it's only by sharing the specific details of those experiences that I am actually able to understand the impact that the student has had. And so simply listing values or details about yourself isn't as helpful as the explanations behind your actions and unpacking the benefits and the repercussions of those.
Yeah, that's very, very, Alexa, stop. I'm sorry about this. Please remind me about this time. So I'll be quick. Alright, so 好，那我们刚刚这个 Joshua 导师来去这个跟大家分享了一下哈，说在这个文书写作当中呢，就是怎么去展现一个故事。那其实他这个点，我觉得这个真的是很好的策略哈，就是我们在比如说写这个文章的时候呢，要看一下这个你写的这句话是不是会让招生官有更多的疑问。比如说，如果你是简单的提了一句说啊，我这个领导力很好，或者说我是做了一个很强的一个什么东西，后面没有一些后续的这个东西来去解释的话，那其实招生官就会想说，哎，那这是为什么？你是怎么样就是做这个事情呢？你为什么会有这么一个成就？那你可不可以就是在分享更多？所以就是我们是更多的想知道这个事情的过程是什么，就是你要分享更多的细节。比如说你怎么做的，你可以问自己一些这些问题 ，How do you did it？ 你怎么做的 ？Why do you did it？ 你为什么做这个？然后以及你学到了什么？就这些问题，就是你先回答完，然后把这个故事写得更加充实、更加完整，这样那个导师这边看的时候呢，就会觉得这是一个他能够看到你在做这件事情，而不只是在就是平平的一句话，就是什么也没有这种。好。我们来看下一个问题哈 Let's see, maybe one more question. Yeah, I think we're good in time. All right, so again, so parents also concerned about the early action admission. I think we kind of like answered this, but I just want to point out. So这个问题是问的说早申是否是必要的呢？有朋友家的孩子去年没有参加早申，最后录的也不错。So this question is that they're asking, is it really necessary to apply in the early round? They have some, I guess, family friend who got in a college during the regular decision round. So I think we kind of like touched on that, but maybe we just, summarize again for this audience.
Sure. I can kind of pull together what we were saying earlier. Yeah. It's not necessary. If you are ready to submit, and you might find out a little bit sooner, and that's the benefit. Like that's great. You have, your stress is shortened a little bit, hopefully. However, and I think Joshua explained this really well, it's not easier in the early round. So if your materials are ready to go and you can submit and know that they're at the best that they're going to be, that hanging on to them another month wouldn't make a difference. Submit early confidently. If you think that, waiting another, 4 weeks and getting, a little bit more read through on your essays, or, finishing off, like your activity list or something, in that case, you wait. But I would never say it's necessary to apply early.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let me translate that for our audience. 好，那刚才其实这个问题呢，我估计确实是学生和家长们都会经常问到的哈。就是其实我们刚刚在讨论这个早批申请的这个策略的时候，已经大概说到了，就是早批申请到底是不是必要的？那有些学生确实他不是在这个早申这一波进去的，他可能是在这个常规轮或者是 ED2 这一轮去就是申请到自己梦想的大学。那确实是你如果觉得说你没有准备的很好，比如说现在马上就是11月1号，10月15号其实就有一波这个早批申请的截止日期哈。10月1号是很多学校的这个早批申请的这个截止日期。如果你觉得在这个时间段呢，你没有办法把自己的这个申请材料准备的非常的充分甚至说可能你想提交这个标化成绩，但是你没有考到一个非常理想的分数的话，那确实这个时候你确实要客观的去评价一下你到底适不适合去这个时候比较有点冲动了去申请这个早批申请。刚才我们其实讲过说早批申请的这些人，虽然说人数来看他没有常规的那么多，或者是没有总的这个这么多，但是他的申请的人的这些人的背景还是蛮强大的，对吧？大家都是准备好的，至少或者是有一些很明显的强项的，大家才会更有信心能够在早批申请的时候去提交。所以如果这个时候你是属于就是还有点不是很确定，然后有些东西还明显就自己都觉得是需要再弥补的，那这个时候确实是不要去盲目的去选择早批申请的这个这一轮，可以等到你准备好了之后我们再提交。Okay, I think we have, there are a lot of questions in the chat room I'm seeing, but actually we have covered most of them, I would say. So there's definitely something we maybe not be able to answer them, but I'll definitely gather the questions, and then I will let our audience know that they can definitely contact us and we can schedule some one-on-one meeting with them and maybe discuss some of other of their concerns. 好，那由于时间的关系呢，我其实这边看到就留言室里真的问题很多哈。我看到有一些问题我们在其实跟one-on-one讨论的过程当中呢是有所解答的那你们可以就是翻回去再看一下我们这个这场讲座的这个内容。然后呢，如果说还是有一些不确定的疑问的话呢，也欢迎联系我们的小助手来进行进一步的咨询。我们这边可以为你进行1对1的这个服务，帮你申请到理想的大学，也帮你去制定你的这个策略如何，特别是早批申请的策略以及文书材料的这个准备如何。刚刚我们也看到，对吧？我们这边的团队这个流程包括我们的这个资源确实是非常强大和丰富的，肯定是能够帮助到你实现你的这个梦想的。好了，那我们今天的这个讲座呢就可以先到这里啦。那如果你对我们这个 In America 的服务感兴趣的话，也可以通过我们的网站和微信平台来了解我们的服务和过往的 offer 吧。那我们今天的活动先到这里啦。Thank you everyone for participating. 再次感谢大家。I think that's a great discussion, everyone. I really enjoy working, like having this discussion with you all. I definitely made a lot of solid point for our audience. 好，那我们就先到这里先结束啦。我们是 In America 在美国际教育，我们下一次活动再见啦。Bye everyone. Thank you. Bye. Have a good night.